I'm going to do first, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Alexandre Burin, and I teach French at Queen Mary University of London. I am French myself, and I actually studied English in France before coming to the UK to teach French. And I've taught French at many different universities, from King's College London to the University of Oxford, University of Manchester, Durham University, where I also did my PhD in French literature, and finally Queen Mary University. Um, I specialize in literature and culture of 19th century French um, topics. That includes also the history of the media. And I teach French language a lot here at Queen Mary as well. Today, I've chosen to focus on French poetry, and this is what we're going to do. The title of this session is Learning and Writing French Poetry. Before I start with the taster, perhaps the two student ambassadors, Jerry and Charlotte, can introduce themselves if you feel like it. Okay, you can chat anyway. Okay, so my presentation is titled Learning and Writing French Poetry. It's meant to be interactive, so please, if you feel like writing your own little poem, do so. That'd be absolutely wonderful. Um, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about French poets. Maybe you know some of them. How does French poetry work? And then we're going to change the focus to modern French poetry. And I'm going to talk to you about Guillaume Apollinaire, who is the poet who invented that form called calligram. Calligram in French is the same word. Um, but before that, do you know any French poets? Please take the time to contribute to this in the chat. Maybe you know some of the French poets, maybe you don't, and it's absolutely fine. Maybe Charlotte or Jerry could name a few poets. Could you actually name the two poets that you see on the screen here? They're both from the 19th century, um, and widely popular. The one to the left actually almost became like a sort of brand, really, like his face would appear on prints, t-shirts, tote bags, anything.
I think the left one is Rimbaud. Is it Rimbaud?
That's right, Jerry, absolutely.
Okay.
Arthur Rimbaud, this very famous French poet who wrote most of his poems between the age of 16 and 20, really. And to the right is Charles Baudelaire, who famously wrote Les Fleurs du Mal, so it's a volume in English, The Flowers of Evil. And both poets are very important in the way they kind of like, change the way we represent the world. And they've been recuperated by popular culture quite heavily. Um, I'm thinking about, music, cinema, not just literature and poetry, really. Um, I've put up a list of other like famous French poets that maybe you know, that not just men, that's important. But of course, like when you look at the 19th century, it's very, very man dominated, really. With Victor Hugo quite famous, it really is like, the image of the great poet. Charles Baudelaire, we've just talked about him. Paul Verlaine as well, who really crafts poetry that is extremely musical. Arthur Rimbaud, and then Anna de Noailles, Guillaume Apollinaire, so we're going to talk about him in a few minutes, Paul Éluard, Jacques Prévert, André Chédid, all the way up to Laura Vasquez, who's a contemporary poet who lives in Marseille, who's really, really good. She won a big national prize of poetry, I think about 2 years ago or something, and she is amazing. Okay. So how does French poetry work? I'm just going to keep it light, really, but just to give you a few words, vocab, so you understand how to how to craft a poem, a French poem in a traditional sense, and then we're going to talk about how to actually deconstruct that and kind of like free the form. So we've got, typically like in French poetry, we've got different stanzas. In French, a stanza is une strophe, and they're composed of verses. In French, it's un vers. Uh, it rhymes. Traditionally, of course, poetry rhymes. And in French, the rhymes often appear at the end of the verses. We've got different sorts of rhymes. We've got croisé, which means there's one rhyme and then two rhymes and then another rhyme. Then we've got embrassé, suivi, and then, within the verse, you will have assonance, allitération, masculine or feminine rhymes as well. So everything really like, sounds like music. We're going to have a closer look at this shortly with a poem. Um, and usually we've got like fixed forms where I'm talking about like traditional poetry. You've got like a set number of lines, rhymes, metrical arrangements. So for instance, un sonnet, which in some ways could be compared to a Shakespearean sonnet. But the French sonnet is composed of 40 lines of 12 syllables. This is an obligation, in a traditional form of it. So you've got two stanzas of 4 verses and two other stanzas of 3 verses each, just like in that poem by Paul Verlaine called À une femme. So you see that it's very, very structured. We can see like the 4 stanzas, 2 of 4 verses, and 2 of 3 verses as well. I'm just going to read like the first 2 stanzas so you understand how it rhymes at the end, okay? À vous ces vers, de par la grâce consolante, de vos grands yeux où rit et pleure un rêve doux, de par votre âme pure et toute bonne, à vous, ces vers du fond de ma détresse violente. C'est qu'hélas, le hideux cauchemar qui me hante n'a pas de trêve et va furieux, fou, jaloux, se multipliant comme un cortège de loups et se pendant après mon sort qui l'ensanglante. So if we focus on those two first stanzas, for instance, we can see that the rhymes are called embrassés. Okay, the first line is lente, then followed by ou, and then ant again. It means like it's like stuck in between. So that's just like an example of a typical French sonnet. So when we talk about French poetry, traditionally there's a sense of structure, lots of rhymes. It's really important. Like some people think that, to write poetry, you need to have your words rhyme with each other. And the text has to be versified, okay, certain number of lines. We're not going to focus on this because I think it's too traditional, precisely. And I think it's better to actually like focus on modern French poetry and how it introduces a liberation from traditional forms and really heavily promotes prose writing. So you got this sense that it goes beyond the dichotomy between beau and laid, so like beautiful and the beauty and the ugly, and really like engages in stylistic experimentations with a focus on everyday objects as well, okay? Not just like something like extremely lyrical, or at least like you can make something lyrical out of everyday objects. And so we're talking about late 19th century, early 20th century. And this man is very important in the promotion of modern French poetry, called Guillaume Apollinaire, who is a poet. He was also a writer, a playwright, an art critic, and he mostly did his poetic, artistic production during La Belle Époque, which is this period of time that defines what France was like during between 1871 and 1914 with the start of the Great War. This period is a period of intense modernization and artistic and also moral freedom, and that paves the way to loads of avant-garde experimentations. Okay, maybe you're familiar to artistic groups such as Dada, the Surrealists, and Guillaume Apollinaire kind of like made room for all these groups to appear. What is interesting with Apollinaire is that he crafted this new form of poetry that he calls calligram, so in English, calligram. And he wrote many between 1913 and 1916. Um, so that's it. Yeah, you can see the picture of Guillaume Apollinaire here. He's got a bandage all around his head because he was injured during the First World War. And the war played a very, very significant role in having the new generation really engage with modernization, artistic and moral freedom, experimentation as well. If the world does not make sense because of the war, well, let's write about this anyway. So, calligram, it's a type of concrete and visual poetry. In concrete poetry, the layout of the words on the page is as important as the words of the poem themselves in conveying meaning. So in the form of concrete poetry called a calligram, the layout of the words on the page forms a recognizable image that contributes to the poem's meaning. I'll show you examples. So what is important here is that the two categories tend to blur together somewhat, but both use layout to achieve interesting visual effects. Now, an example. You can see here. So quite clearly, we can see the silhouette of a woman wearing a hat. And the lines are made out of words. It's called Reconnais-toi, and Apollinaire wrote this in 1915. So the text read, it's probably like a little bit difficult for you to make out all the words, but he reads Reconnais-toi, cette adorable personne, c'est toi. Sous le grand chapeau canotier, œil, nez, ta bouche. Voici l'ovale de ta figure, ton cou exquis. Voici enfin l'imparfaite image de ton buste adoré, vu comme à travers un nuage. Un peu plus bas, c'est ton cœur qui bat. So it's a description of a woman he loves, and the description, the words, will create the image, the visual representation of the woman as well. It's quite interesting to see that some words actually come to define precisely what they also define visually on the page, such as œil, eye, nez, nose, and bouche, your mouth. It says you can see that in the center of the face, really. Apollinaire would craft most of his calligram from original pictures. So here we can see that, he had this picture of Louise de Coligny-Châtillon and made this calligram out of it. So we can recognize the process even better, I suppose, here. And this is my last example, perhaps the most famous. Maybe some of you have come across this one. It's called the Eiffel Tower, and of course it represents the Eiffel Tower, and it reads Salut monde, dont je suis la langue éloquente, que sa bouche, ô Paris, tire et tirera toujours aux Allemands. This translates into Hello world, of which I am the eloquent tongue, which your mouth, O Paris, will forever stick out at the Germans. So, of course, this is 1918. This is the end of the war. And this is some sort of like, patriotic poem that takes the mickey at the German, really. Okay. So this is a representation of the Eiffel Tower, kind of like teasing the Germans for losing the war. Apollinaire died that year, so he didn't live to see that the Germans invaded France again a few years later. That's the Second World War. But anyway, I guess, those two examples give you a better idea of what the calligram is. And what is it that you notice on that particular calligram, La Tour Eiffel? Well, we still do have poetic language, okay, langage poétique in French. But there's a mix of prose and free verse, which is called vers libre. So it really like gives you a sense of freedom, artistic, poetic freedom when it comes to the writing of poetry. Personification as well, okay, and that is both for the Reconnais-toi and the Eiffel Tower poem. So here, symbolism is also an attribute to freedom. We still do have marks of lyricism, okay? There's an apostrophe, the interjection O, that's to call out to somebody. O civilisé, so that's O civilized man or woman. But there's also a personified idea when he's calling out to Paris. Oh, Paris. So just to give you more context, of course, I've just briefly talked about this, but the context is the First World War, where, you get a sense of national freedom, culture, etc. at the end of it. Now, if you feel like it, I would like you to also create your own calligram using symbols of London, maybe. That could be the Tower Bridge, London Eye, Big Ben, the Shard, you name it. But really anything that you like and that represents your culture or identity. Okay, so you don't have to pick a London monument. Yeah, maybe we can just stop here. I'll give you like 15 minutes maybe, and then we can all come back to that room and just take a look at what you have. All right. So I'll come back around 5:40-ish, and then we can all discuss this together. All right. Okay. So let's resume this session. Did you have the time to come up with your own calligram? Yes, says Charlotte. Do you want to share it with us?
Okay, it's a little bit cringy. I tried to draw it. Oh, you can't see because of my. Can you see it? It's supposed to be Big Ben, and it says à Londres, le temps avance, mais le rêve reste. Les cloches sont sur la ville qui ne dort jamais. Entre la Tamise et le Segre, Londres écrit chaque jour son histoire et continue d'avancer.
Excellent stuff. Thank you so much, Charlotte. That looks great. What about you, Jerry? Did you manage to craft one?
Yeah, I also made one. It represents my identity because I think it's a part of everyone's identity and it's about love. I'll send it into the group, like the chat part. It's basically about, but it's supposed to be a heart and it says Amour, amour, mon cœur est léger. Quand je pense à toi, il bat doucement pour toi. And it's like little.
Excellent. Did you have fun doing this?
Yeah.
No, I think this is a really cool activity to be doing as well. Okay, cool. Well, we're essentially approaching the end of this session. What we're going to do now is well, I can share actually before something that I did myself as well. It's back in the time where I was teaching at Durham, and I came up with this calligram. It's supposed to be representing the Angel of the North, which is like a very famous statue in the outskirts of Newcastle, and it reads, "I am Alex, coming from France to the northeast with my arms wide open, teaching poetry to you." So that was my humble contribution. It's now a little old, really. I should try and come up with one representing a monument in London, maybe. So that's it. And now we can start with the Q&A session. If there's no question already, maybe Jerry, Charlotte could talk about why they chose to study their subject Aquamary, and maybe, it will it will allow guests to think about what is it that they're looking for as well. If there's any question related to Queen Mary, modern languages, French, or the university as a whole as well. Yeah. So Jerry, Charlotte, maybe you want to talk about your experience?
I don't mind starting. Hi, my name's Charlotte. I'm in my final year. Well, I've just finished, and I did my year abroad last year. And I study French and Spanish, so modern languages. Um,
I think we've got a question.
oh, we've got a
Yes.
question. What extracurricular activities did you do? Um, Gary, do you want to answer this? Because I feel like
Yeah.
you've done a lot of things. Maybe introduce yourself first.
Yeah, hello everyone. Hi, I'm Gary. I'm a final year liberal arts student. I also did a year abroad. I did it with Charlotte at Sorbonne. It's very lovely for a year. And yeah, what extracurricular activity I did? In first year I did Criminal Justice Society, which was basically a law society. Yeah, merci Alexandre. It was because I purely nepotism. My sister was running it, and I just kind of applied to be a marketing executive there, so I did that. But you can also join a lot of sports societies, which all my friends have kind of joined. I don't know, Charlotte, if you've joined, sorry. But
Yeah, I did what's it called? Model UN, which was great. And in my second year, through actually being a student ambassador, I got the opportunity to be a sort of London language ambassador with lots of other people from different universities, and we were promoting higher education to, and specifically languages to underprivileged schools and areas, which was really fun. There's lots of networking opportunities that I've done before. And we also have at Queen Mary an amazing volunteering area. I'm currently doing volunteering with Food Cycle. So there's so many things that you can do. But as well, we have, I don't know how many societies we have at Queen Mary.
it must be in the
Uh,
hundreds.
yeah, we have hundreds of societies, lots of sports ones. I don't know, Pokemon, if you like that. Academic ones. There's also special language ones. You can join the French Society if you want to do that, which is also really fun. You meet lots of French people, speak French, which is great. Yeah.
What is it that you preferred during your time at Queen Mary? Because of course, like you've just mentioned it, you both finished with your BA now. What is it that you're going to take with you dearly?
I think if I can start, I think what I would take with me from Queen Mary was the friendships and also the kind of like just system of friends that I've managed to build. I think it's really hard when you migrate to a new country and you're trying to find yourself and your identity to do it alone. So I think how diverse Queen Mary is and knowing that, it really, really helped with like connecting with people, meeting new people and kind of keeping friendships. It really helps you survive the academics even on your study abroad if you have a friend you like Charlotte, for example. So yeah, I think I'll take that with me. But obviously the like endless amount of academics and essays that I had to write, which was quite nice, I think, overall.
Yeah, I think honestly the best thing about Queen Mary and like studying languages, I think if you ask anyone who studied languages, will be the year abroad. For me, because I do modern languages, I did my first semester in Paris, La Sorbonne, because it was my post A-level language. It's the shorter semester. And then I did AB Initio, so started from scratch with Spanish. And I went to Barcelona, and I think that was probably the best experience that I could have had. I've been non-stop traveling ever since and doing things. So yeah, there's a question. Did you speak about any activities you had done, such as reading or French cinema in your personal statements? That's a while ago. I've with my personal statement, I talked about I think some books that I had read and just different things, but it's really down to you. Just talk about what you have done. And I think if you like reading or French cinema, you could definitely put that in your personal statement. It won't hurt to do that at all.
Yeah, I think don't be shy with your personality. I think if that is what you like to do as your hobby, and that is kind of your main inspiration, then yeah, then I think it's amazing to mention in your personal statement because it is personal, right? That's why it's called personal statement, because they don't really want to hear like a chat GPT written stuff. They want to get to know you as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to essentially not forget who you are and to talk about yourself as your own personality. But then again, it's good to mention this in the sense that there's loads of transferable skills, coming out of studying French cinema. That's the example you chose, or literature or anything really. Um, but when you do engage with such subjects, you really like work on your critical thinking, which I think is like one of the really like amazing skill that you're going to develop throughout your time at university. Communication skills, research skills, intercultural awareness, but also creativity and innovation. Um do not forget about media, digital literacy, project and time management, when you think about essay assignment, etc. So you might think that, studying something that is slightly more cultural, for instance, would not have you apply for certain types of position where really, you get to learn and to acquire many, many, many different sets of skills, really.
Yeah, we also received a question, do you have any recommendations of French books to read or films to watch? I think depends on like what you want to focus on, right? Because there's like different eras and different types of writings and films you can watch. I watched Emily in Paris, which is not in French, but it did kind of put me in the headspace of how French people can act. But before I went to Paris, but that is a very silly answer. Charlotte, do you have a more appropriate one?
I mean, with lots of French books and films, there's a lot of like the classic films you could watch. Like, I don't know, maybe you did them for A level even. Les Choristes, was it La Haine? Is that a popular one? I've watched quite a lot of French Netflix series, but I honestly could not tell you what I have watched. But honestly, if it's that you're trying to improve your French, a great thing to do is always, even if you're watching something in English, put the subtitles in French. And then I've always found that I can try and learn new words just by doing that.
And do this with things that you really like as well. Okay, it should be a chore. So if you like Lion, try and dig up, like urban movies, kind of like similar to Lion as well. If you like sports, try and really like engage with that. So I always trying to have my students uh, not put aside their own personal interests, but actually like to capitalize on them and to engage with the French language and culture altogether. That's why in the past, for instance, I crafted modules about West African music and nation building, mixing kind of like music and politics, for instance. That could be poetry, that could be lots of different things, really. So if you do have an interest in cinema, for instance, yes, please do spend the summer really like engaging in researching and watching as many movies as you possibly can, with, of course, like original language on, subtitles, etc. But it's you're always going to benefit from this, really, and you're going to learn more easily if you're doing something that you're really happy with, essentially.
I would also like to mention, I actually haven't used it myself, but I know that there is the French, is it the French Spotify playlist that we can add to?
Well,
Am I correct
yeah,
in that?
that's a playlist that I've crafted, but I was not really aware that the students would engage with it actually. Yeah, it's still on. There's a Spotify playlist that is chronological actually. So it starts, I think, from like the very first recordings of songs in early 20th century to nowadays, and and it really features all the different genres as well. But there's another one that I crafted for that module on West African music called the Francophone Imaginary as well, was loads of West African music, if you're ever interested in this. And Dylan says that he has Camus' book and he hopes to read it this summer. Excellent. I think that's a very good start. And then don't be shy if you feel like you need to also like read the translation, you know, it's absolutely fine. But there's like short paragraphs of Camus that you could definitely engage with in the original language, as the sentences are quite short. You know, if you think about the very start of the book, for instance. So yeah, there's another question about workload, guys.
I don't know. For workload, I feel like with the language, especially as you are coming in post A level, you are at an advantage where most of the grammar that you are going to be taught, especially in your first year, because everybody wants to be on the same sort of level. If you're post A level, it's very manageable. And again, with the language, it's kind of how much you put in. So if you every day you were, I don't know, watching French YouTubers or something, you're basically revising. And then I think you said you wanted to do a joint honours, I'm not sure, but for me, I do another language, so I also have that, but I do two cultural modules. And again, it's what you choose, depends on how much workload. So I did this year two cultural modules, one about like political messages in Spanish comics, which meant a lot of reading, and I think two essays. But then in my second year, I did AB Initio Arabic, which was a lot more work, because with a language you do have to put it in the work in kind of constantly. What is the balance between French and your other subject like? Is it 50-50? For me, it is. I don't know. For Gary, you're doing what was it? I'll let you answer that because it's probably.
Yeah, no, I do other, it's not just languages that I do, but yeah, I also do Japanese, but that one's it's 50-50 for me. I think, I mean, depending on like the credits that you take when it comes to modules. So if it's 15 credits, it's not going to be 50-50, right? Because if it's like one of the modules, let's say is 15 credits, the other one's 30, then there's going to be double the workload or double the intensity. And yeah, so it really depends on like what subject you pick and how carefully you manage to do that. I don't know, Charlotte, I'm really not sure about the joint honors thing.
Yeah, for me, so I did AB Initio Spanish. I've had to put in a lot more. But what language? Yeah, I do AB Initio Spanish. But yeah, I had to put in quite a bit more work with that one, because French was almost like basically becoming more natural to me by the time I'd finished my A level. So, and Spanish was completely new. So yeah, it's definitely been more difficult for me than French. But after my year abroad, even if I wasn't making lots of Spanish friends all the time, you just learn the language living in a country where you have to speak Spanish at university, and it's just around you. You do just learn the language somehow.
Right, any more questions? Okay, well, I think that if there's no more questions, maybe we can wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining the session today. And of course, like I've copied a few email addresses, websites and stuff. So if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us again. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think there is a ambassador for Unibuddy for languages. I know neither Gary or I are the ambassador, but you will be able to find somebody on Unibuddy for French or at least modern languages if you do feel like asking more questions. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone. Bye.